Well, hey, how y'all doing out there today? Many of us study. We watch our present day uh, uh, issues and events going on around us. We keep up with the race war. We know that we are pitted against each other, and we all, every one of us, on both sides of this fence, on who's a prisoner of war of the mind, on whatever side of the race issue you sit on. Every one of us agree that we're being played. Some blame it on this leader or this guy in America, some George Soros or billionaires like Bill Gates or a lot of people. We feed into it because we don't know. Well, that I'm one of these people. I'm one. I watch the race war because it's the dumbest war out there. It is a war for the mind. It is a visual war, and it's also a war of hate. And we can't live with this kind of hate. And it's hate through ignorance. So I just wanted to point out something that really became very obvious to me in a moment sitting here checking out some things. I was just reviewing some comments made back on a particular video, and one of them was a percentage on population. So I hadn't looked at it in a while, and I knew there was some facts behind what they were saying, but I wanted to check for myself, and what I saw really hit me, and it really applies to the race war, especially with the way we have this modern technology, the internet, social media, where anybody, foreign countries, people in foreign countries can put anything on the World Wide Web, the internet, and push things that maybe we, the people here in America, or maybe even people in Africa or other places that are the black-white race war. It's the primary one I'm talking about. How it seems to be global and very bad here in America, and in the unbalanced population of people in Africa, where there's more black people than white people, there's trouble. And in America and Europe, where there's more white people than black people, there's always trouble. That's where the racism and the hate. But who's pushing it? Because who benefits from it? Because we've all learned. This is my point in all of this, and what I've just really want to make you aware of. I hope you become very aware of this. Uh, Looking at the population statistics, I can't see a white superpower pushing this no more than a black superpower pushing this, because combined, black people and white people, and I'm just going on the averages, what's thrown in by visual color, a black person and a white person, globally are just right at 30%. About half of us are white and about half of us are black. And that's the true black folks. I know we see a different thing here in America because it's supposedly 77% white and just right at 13% black. And we see a different unbalanced part of that statistic. But actually, globally, we're less than a third of the global population, and we're both about 15%. We're half and half. Yet we fight each other harder probably than any other two races of people on the planet. And that got me to wondering, it's like, which side, since it's equal sides and we're all equal in human beings, is it just because of the way the kings own the armies or the way things win or such and such? But no, I'm talking about modern day, 2019, why our thought process is still on centuries old racism and hate. Why it's still there when we all know better, when we know we're being played. And here's the important part. I really got to thinking when I was looking at that pie chart, and it was showing the basic different races of people. And you know that about 8% of the global population seems to be Central American or South American Latino, I guess you would say. Another roughly 8% was the Middle Eastern type people. But you got a billion people from India, which is some consider South Asia or Western Asia, whatever. Uh, Over half the people on this planet are Chinese. The Chinese make the best computers, by the way. They're very smart people. They're not nowhere near what you think's going on. And about 25% of the global population are the Hans type people, the Hans Chinese. They speak basically Mandarin. This is when you think of 1.5 billion Chinese, this is what you think about, those people. Then you got the maybe in the groups of people, since the Chinese have always either went to war with you and tried to control everything, or they just worried about the Chinese and had actually good trade and good bargaining with people. Well, you notice now that China's become an enemy in the trade war, and we're going to make money off of them now, when normally in history, other countries, lesser countries, did get a little bit of extra money through the trade from the superpower because they were so rich. And now we see this change of hands, and this is what got me to thinking about who wins in a race war. Well, if only 15% of us are white and 15% of us are black, and no matter what the ratio here is in America, because in America we're all supposed to be equal and smart and able to think, and we're less than a third of the population, and we look at the combination of alliances today, like the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, we notice that these other countries, other than the one we seem to worry about, have somehow, with these major populations, with major types of one race like the Chinese, India, and then the Latino in Brazil, and then your different kind of white people, which the population in Russia seems to be growing pretty well. They've all come together. They're all working together, and they all tend to be enemies, or they would win in our race war, if you see what I'm getting at. If the 15% of the population was just by itself, they would be no more of a threat than, say, the Latino or the Arabic community. All right, both of them combined are only 16% of the population. If it was just 15% white, even though it's an industrialized global white society type format for life, it seems like, still that 15% couldn't do much. But they know that combined, that's a third of the world's power. That's a third of the world's people. That's two equal sides fighting each other, which means it's a war that will never end. You get that now? So who benefits? Who would win in America's race war? White people? No, we done figured out they're slaves too. We done figured out they've been propped up as the better slave, or the slave that looks like this particular thing. All these things we've been taught and everything about it all being a white problem or all being a black problem. No, I don't see it that way as much anymore. I do see the pockets of racism anywhere there's unbalanced ethnic groups. That's everywhere around the world. Look at South Africa. Look at little pockets in Africa where white people have tried to go colonize or make city states or whatever. Here in America, the imbalance in that always causes friction. That's why we're supposed to look at each other beyond our eyes and not see the color, and look at the soul, look at the man, look at the woman, look at the individual, the citizen, the fellow human being. But since it's broken down in race, bam, two equal sides, never ends. The war never ends. It can only end in here, and then it can only end individual to individual. And they know that. So for the most part, if you look at social media, who puts those memes up there? Who puts those articles up there? Who is the information outlet for the BRICS nations? Russia. Okay, they'd like to play those games. When the Chinese want something done, the Chinese don't do it. They get the Russians to do it. India, bless them, they're just a slave nation, as is Brazil. If they're just slave nations, they're going to be used for manufacturing. They're going to be used for your jobs because you're fighting over race. We're fighting over who's going to get the job, to where we ain't figuring out that they done took all the jobs from everybody. Everybody ain't got no job. Not the one you want, not the one you went to school for, not the one you were sold that same education that the black man, the white man, and every man in America was sold. Huh? Think about that. Think about who is building up a new superpower right now, who is building up a new power infrastructure to run their military in their country. Look at who is advancing and who is not, who is staying stagnant. Look at who is buying who. China has bought the Marcellus Shale right out from underneath the Appalachian Mountains, y'all. And you ain't even gonna pay attention to that. Chinese, Canadian, and Russians are all around our country right now, laying millions of miles of pipelines for their materials, things that they want that they're taking from our country. So and all the time, way more than should be in 2019 has our attention gone to what color our fucking brother and sister is, when all along we were tribe, whether we liked it or not. We were tribes that coexist. So I want to make that point clear when I'm just throwing out this jewel. This is gold to me, y'all. Who benefits globally in a race war? Because this is a global economy, whether you like it or not. This is global influence for sure. Because look at the American way influence across the world and how many people didn't like it. How many people stuck to themselves in their own countries like China, but now they're growing. They're getting, that's what I said. You got to pay attention to who's growing, who's staying stagnant, and who's even losing people. Got to look at how those countries work together and look at what their races are and how they get along. Matter of fact, most of them, with the exception of Brazil, are all on the same continent almost in South Africa. Brazil, Russia, India, and China, they're all right there. I mean, Russia, India, and China are all right there together. And look at all those people. Look at that infrastructure that has to be fed. Look at that. Look at how rich people are going to look at that. Look at how world powers are going to look at that labor force and that military force, the soldier for soldier military, that they could have millions of soldiers and it wouldn't even affect a small percentage of their population. So who wins the race war? Huh? Me because I'm white and my people win, or you because you're black and your people win? Man, when we're sitting there fighting each other, my black brothers and sisters and my white brothers and sisters, when we're fighting each other, I hate to say it because it sounds racist, but man, the rest of the world's creeping up on us like Indians on the hillside. They're buying our country. They're putting things out here from other countries on American issues. Boy, you ever want to know somebody that knows more about American politics than an American? Just ask an Australian. The world pays attention to us, but they micromanage their thoughts on how they feel about us. But for the most part, we're laughed at for fighting each other when everybody sees that it's our government and who they've been bought out by. So once again, I say, look at DC. Look at how they've allowed the EPA to have oil baron and coal baron type executives in there that literally make it legal to strip our country raw by the Chinese, by the Russians, and by the fucking Canadians. And we ain't getting none of it but the toxic death behind it while we call each other black and white. Wow. I got to just say I see it, and wow. So we got to stop that thinking because it's being played upon you. Think about that. It's being played upon you. It is not a reality. We have come a long way. We have been taught through public school and indoctrination programs and just by the media itself to focus on these certain things when we have greater things to accomplish and greater things we have accomplished. Victories are swept under the rug and all you're shown are the problems, but who are you shown them by? Because those corporations that own the six corporations that own the 90% of the media in the world, who do you think owns the other 10% of that media? China. Get it now? You get it now? They got just as much at stake at the global infrastructure and power change as anybody, and they got most of the people. They are the biggest race. You ever want to really be looked down on, let an old Chinese woman a real old Chinese woman in a Chinese food place talk to you, they'd be shaking their head at you because they just think you're dumb. And you're eating that dumb food. So there you go. That's just a joke. The serious part of this is who's going to win the race war? Chinese. Who's going to be sitting pretty on the black-white side of this? South Africa and Russia. And look where they live all the way apart. Do I think black people and white people can live together in peace and harmony? Well, you goddamn straight. I lived it most of my life. But the way things are pitted against us, but by who? Today, it makes it hard. Well, that's why we break stereotypes. That's why we point out facts like this. And that who would benefit, who would win from a black-white race war would be the rest of the world. Primarily their new world order kings, the Chinese and the Russians. And it's all in your face. All the information's right there in your face. But now I bet many of you still turn around and say, well, no, Bill, but that thing about the black guy. Oh no, Bill, you know them damn white folks is like this. No. Half the things that you know you never experienced in your life, or you think you know, you never even experienced in your life about racism. And the other half is created from lies. If something's created from a lie, it is a lie itself. So racism is a lie because it's a visual lie that's been legally and it's been manipulated by white folks. Now, I'm not taking away from the past. I'm talking about today in 2019, who benefits? Super white rich? Well, maybe if they speak Mandarin, and that's another thing. You best be following these super white millionaires and billionaires that do business with China and that are all in bed with China and Russia. Look at ExxonMobil. Look at Donald Trump. Look at all these people that have been at that former Secretary of State. All of them. Anyway, they all got business interests with China or Russia. It's right there. It's not a conspiracy no more. It's not like, oh, well, that's, Bill got me thinking about this, but that's kind of wild. No, it ain't wild. It's happening every day in our lives. We're pitted against each other. They just even said that the Russians do that and poke and prod at the American race war because it's easy, number one, and it's effective, number two. But they're throwing psyops at you. It's lies. It's truth mixed with lies, and then it's hyped up. Like you could put an article from, they've done this before too, put an article like from April 19th, 1775, when the American Revolution started, and all these, so many men were shot today, blah, 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 while trying to do this and attacking a federal building. Yeah, but it happened 200 years ago. They can put it out there now and get you. They can put out a meme of somebody's head, Abraham Lincoln, but giving some saying he never said. They can put out post articles of black men being shot in the street, and the way that it's promoted would be to promote racism instead of solutions, or looking at the police instead of the white man. You get it now? Or the knockout games, anything that they put out there and push. What hits mainstream media? Who keeps the war machine going? Who has an interest and a stake in this? I don't think it's so much a black-white thing. I'm not taking, by no means, peace, all right? I am not taking the fact that white-black racism exists. It always has, and by God, it probably always will. But it's always in the areas with the most unbalanced population. And for example, I'm just going to give America and South Africa. Look at how that goes on both sides of that fence. And also by promoted racism, making one slave feel they're better than the other slave, so they do the more work, and it's usually the bigger part of the population. One's either the more oppressed or they're the more privileged, and both are lies. But both are there because they're promoted. Who's promoting it? Do the math, follow the money, and keep an eye open. Y'all I can't tell you enough. Keep watching world events, even what little bit of real news or half news that we get from the TV or media. Please pay attention to what anything that Russia or China is involved in, or India or Brazil. Pay attention to this new president down there in Brazil and how he's going to be tough on crime, and they had 60,000 murders a year in Brazil. Pay attention to what's going on in these places because they formed an alliance. It's in the wide open. It's common knowledge. It's called the BRICS nations. And they have the 40% of the money and 40% of the hell. Actually, they got about 60% of the people, and they keep 30% of us fighting each other. You think about that. They keep 30% of us fighting each other. My brothers and sisters of America. Think about that. I love y'all. We gotta look beyond the statistics and see where they can lead. No question is a dumb question at this point in time in history. We need to figure out where this is coming from, how we're being played, so we can stop it. We can stop it because it all stops right here, because that's where the war is to begin with. I call it the race war because it is a race war, but who would win from it? Who would win from it? We never stop. Think about that. Peace. I love you, and don't live in fear.